This is Mo Bashir for the Hook. I'm delighted to be joined by Anthony Crolla. Anthony, firstly, how are things?
Mate, all really good, thank you. Looking forward to Friday's show. Three lads on. I've got Yon and Garen Croft making the Matchroom debut, and I've got my younger brother William. Then obviously Colmaine to Pat. So no, it's a night. They're the kind of nights you want as a coach, aren't they? And then I've got the 7.5 hour round trip for Mikey O'Sullivan in Cardiff on the boxing card for a 4-rounder. So the joys, mate. But no, listen, very thankful to be doing that.
Awesome. Talk to me a little bit about your transition from fighting in the ring, big nights, bright nights in Manchester, to now having an active role in fighters' careers.
Yeah, what's it called? I've got my own gym, and I was always coaching, even when I was professional, even when I was winning world title, I was always helping out with the amateurs. So it was always seeing the normal steps to do, but I planned on sort of staying with the amateurs. Next thing, I've got a big stable of professional fighters. I'm in too deep. But no, listen, it's very tough, but it's something I love, and the nights like Friday, I see you later, mate, what we're here, what you're in it for, aren't they? And I think I always said, I think coaching helps fill that void that you miss once fighting's over. And like at all levels, like I say, listen, I've just, I've had the lads in this morning, I've come here to this press, I'll go back. And tonight, maybe once a week, I'll try and help out with the amateurs. I'll try and do that tonight. I love it with the amateurs more than these daft lot, do you know what I mean? But so yeah, doing that, and Project Boxing, which I have with a good friend Don McGuinness, where we manage a few fighters. We look at getting jobs, careers, apprenticeships, like at different stages for current fighters who are probably looking for a professional career, current amateur boxers, fighters who've retired. So yeah, that's sort of the kind of thing we're trying to do. Some training camps away with some kind of lads who'd never get away otherwise. It's for the training camps. So yeah, plenty of different things.
You know, when you were fighting, was thinking about a career after boxing something that you, I guess, focused on?
Do you know what? Because I always thought I'd stay involved, and obviously I do little bits of media stuff. I always thought I'd stay involved, but there's obviously certain things now I wish I would have planned better, or sort of PDs and stuff. You think, oh, should I put it into that rather than that, or do you know what I mean? There's always that, and I'd probably always recommend that. I'd always recommend that to current professional boxers, because there's so many boxers who, once those paydays stop, it's like, what do you do next? What's your career after boxing? There's a very, very small percentage, almost minute, who don't have to worry about that ever again. So yeah.
I guess what was it that you wish you'd done now? Wish you'd done then that you know now, and also did you set up Project Boxing to almost sort of as a way of, I guess, of like resonating with what you were going through as a boxer in Manchester?
What do I wish I would have set up then? Oh, listen, you can always have a hindsight thing like that. Well, I wish I would have bought Bitcoin back then. I wish I would have did. Do you know what I mean? But probably planned a little bit better. So probably stuff like that. But listen, life's a little bit easier for me than what it was before. A few houses, and I've I've got the gym. I'm in there doing that, but I'm always doing something. Even like sometimes the weekend, I do an handful of PTs a week just to tick over and stuff. You should do you know what I mean? But I always knew sort of I didn't want to stay in boxing over Jurek, like, do you know what I mean? If I could have stayed in boxing, I got a few good paydays, but I wouldn't have been the same fighter. It's the lasting effect that it has on you. I've got many friends, people who I grew up close to, who, boxing's took more from them than they took from boxing.
And then Project Boxing, I guess, like, when did you decide to set that up?
So we set up that up a few years ago. Just short, last sort of 18 months or so. And it was sort of just to look for, take care of fighters, a few opportunities for fighters in and out the ring. And bringing the big companies on board. Looking at a few companies who brought apprenticeships. It's always good for a big company bringing through apprenticeships. So a boxer has a lot of high qualities that you'd want from a young apprentice, where it's routine, hard working. I know some boxers can be crazy, but there's a lot of goodness to come from that.
Is that, I guess, is that as a way of like something they do alongside of boxing? Is that the whole premise of it? With the apprenticeships, when you say you're bringing on these companies to offer the fighters.
Yeah, that's something like obviously we're speaking to the companies. Dom McGuinness, business partner, he does an awful lot. He's very good at that. I think I'm much better with the hands on with the boxing stuff, but I'll always try and do a bit as well. And I just think it's sort of the importance of, like I said, even during boxing now, there's very few pros who can just box and all have to rely on sponsors. Listen, look, we need to try and bring a few sponsors on as well for the fighters as well, but there is so many fighters who need to work alongside that, who aren't coming from the decorated amateur background or even the professional ranks at all. They just need to know it's so, you turn professional unless you're with one of the big promoters on good money. You also need to earn money on the side as well.
I think it's easier now for boxers to, I guess with social media, right? That you can almost sort of, I guess athletes are brands in themselves.
Yeah, no, but yes and no. Listen, you can put yourself out there. Social media, it's getting bigger and bigger all the time. It's also a bit diluted though, and then it's putting yourself out there. Listen, I've got like Dairy, I think it's a fantastic talent. I think he's every bit good enough to be on these big shows. He's not got the opportunity, and anyone who knows him thinks we need him. He's got a few fights where I think, they're going to happen, and they've not happened, they've been turned down because of, they know he's going to have, they see it as an either slow lane because, we've not got this big following and stuff like that. And I keep saying to him, you've got to start putting little bits out on social media just to help it. But it's like you say, there's a lot doing it, isn't there? And then I think with that as well, like, there's also fighters who are getting opportunities who ahead of other fighters who probably don't deserve that, but I've always said professional boxing is a business. It's a sport, but it's also a business.
I guess what can younger fighters do then to almost give themselves a better opportunity to
listen, first and foremost, your boxing's got to be priority, but after that I think you've got to look outside of boxing, like how you sort of build a brand, how you build a profile the best you can, coming across in the right way. And I think it's not always doing that by being online and finding some kind of niche. I mean, yeah, that helps, but even I would say, like, helping out your local amateur boxing club and stuff, that then you're helping out the kids, there's them families, not just for that reason, because it's very rewarding as well, but those families are like, you know what, he's helping out, we're going to help him out when he needs to sell tickets and stuff like that. So there's different ways sort of to do it, but obviously, listen, first and foremost, your boxing counts, but there's so much more to it than just training hard. Do you know what I mean? Putting yourself out there in the right way, and opportunities come.
Awesome. Let's talk a little bit about your brother William.
Yeah.
When he was coming through, did you? I guess it's quite a Marmite relationship in the sense that, like, families can either work together or they can't. Like, were you always going to work together with?
Yeah, we was always going to work together. Listen, we have our moments like most brothers. Call each other a few times throughout camp. This camp has not been that bad at all. It's been the odd moment, but it's not been bad at all. The last one it was very, but that's I was always doing. Even when William was an amateur, I was always doing bits with him. When he was a kid and stuff like that. So it always seemed the way that's how it was going to go. It was always going to be that way. So yeah, but like you say, not all the father son or brother relationships work there. I think ours does work. And it's a fun ride.
You went through a little bit of adversity when you suffered that loss. What, I guess, how did you help him through that?
Well, I've been there. I've been there a few times. One early on in my career, and I think a lot of lessons have been learned from that. And I think we see a much better fighter today because of that. And I would say a blessing in disguise. And the mistakes he learned, the mistakes he made leading up to that. He won't make those mistakes again. If he does, then it's not a lesson, is it? It can happen once, but you can't make the same mistakes in the build-up, and I think he's learned from that.
Awesome. And then finally, we'll talk about the Croft twins, because they're just starting to match you. How good do you think they are?
Very. I think, Welsh boxing, it gets overlooked an awful lot. Huge prospects coming out of Wales now. I believe these boys are very, very good. You'll see on a Friday night, both for superb talent. People go, who's the best? And I go, I genuinely can't pick. I don't want to pick, but I genuinely can't right now. But no, two massive. Here they are now, talking the thing. But
where's the other one?
I don't know which one. Where's the
one? Gary?
It was. Not seeing him, Sam. Yeah, but no, and listen, they bring huge support down here. Where they're, the village where they're from, literally the whole village comes out to support them. They'll do good tickets, and I believe they're the kind of lads who'll bring some huge nights back to Wales, in Welsh boxing.
And then just finally on Pat Brown.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a great talent.
Pat's a great talent, great lad, and someone who I think a lot of young fighters should look up to, the way he carries himself. And but most of all, he brings entertainment.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to Friday night for William fights, and hopefully get back out and watch Pat straight away. But Pat's a great talent. Listen, I think you can see the way he's been matched. He's been moved fast, and he'll continue to get moved fast. And I think Friday night you'll see another explosive performance from Pat.
And just before I go, something just comes to my mind.
Yes.
You did an interview, I think, with Adam Catch.
There he is. Yeah.
And you mentioned that, I guess, with the advent of Saudi boxing, it's sort of almost taken away the shine from British venues. I mean, we've seen this year that there's been a lot more fights in the UK.
Yes.
Do you think that's had a positive impact on British boxing as a whole?
What, since it stopped?
Well, I guess like in 2026, for example, there's been so much boxing.
Been a lot more active, haven't we?
Yeah.
Been a lot more active, and absolutely. And you saw the show last week. It was a fantastic show, one of the best shows we've seen in recent times. Do I believe that's because a lot of these cards have stopped? Yeah, of course. I think it's one of them. It's just speaking down here. It's pretty obvious, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And that's it. I don't like to say whether we're going to see some more back in Saudi. There's nothing wrong with that. But all I said was the UK market had been affected massively, and I think anyone could disagree. Do you know, when you look, the proof's in the pudding, and now we're starting to see more shows already. So I think anyone who might disagree, I'd like to see what their answer is now.
Anthony,
thank you, man.